Welcome into the show. Rockets get a huge win, 117 to 100, coming home after a 6-game road swing. Coming home to host the Cavs, and really from about mid first quarter on, it was just all Rockets. As Kevin Durant was just incredibly efficient. One of his best shooting performances I felt just watching this guy operate from the mid range and beyond tonight. He drops 30 points in 28 minutes. And I'm here with Ben DuBose. Ben, this was a great win. They've got Tari and DFS back, and it was just no Alperen Sengun tonight. Obviously it was a little questionable whether they would be able to do well with their bigs, Cleveland's bigs, but it was no question from the very beginning.
Yeah, this was a special Kevin Durant performance. I mean, the Rockets had this put away. It felt like by halftime. Kenny Atkinson, the Cavs coach, said post-game that they just didn't match the fight from the Rockets. And this is the second game in a row that Houston held an opponent to 100 or fewer points. And it would have clearly been below 100 again, just like the Lakers game on Christmas, if not for, the end of the bench guys in the fourth quarter, which allowed the Cavs to get to 100 on the nose. So this is the second consecutive game that the Rockets really buckled down defensively. That's the phrase Kevin Durant used in his post-game walk-off with Vanessa Richardson. And so I think, some people will undoubtedly point to, Sengun being absent tonight, but they were very good with Sengun on Thursday against the Lakers. I think it's deeper than that. I think it's, first off, Dorian Finney-Smith was incredible. His plus minus tonight, I'm looking this up. It was limited, but he played 16 minutes and he was plus 20.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to DFS. Even though he's only scored 3 points in 2 games, I think he's already making an effort with his communication, how hard he works defensively. But I think when you can combine this level of defense with Kevin Durant, who at 37 years old is still an all-NBA caliber player, I mean, you get a team that can be very, very good. What happened on this road trip when they went 2-4, it was the defense. Whenever we talked to people inside the organization, the two things you heard more than anything, Dave, it was defense and rebounding. That's what they were focused on. It's not crunch time scoring. It's not the point guard debates. It's defense, it's rebounding. They've always felt like if they can fix those things and get back to what they do best, Dave, you said it before, their superpower is rebounding, especially crashing the offensive glass. Then now that you have Kevin Durant, they should have enough to get to the finish line. And Dave, I came away feeling really good in the big picture. Like, I'm not going to say that they'd be better off without Alperen Sengun. Like, that's crazy. But what I will say is that seeing that Kevin Durant has this gear, it felt like without Alpi, they just gave Kevin the ball. They dialed his usage up. And you mentioned 30 points in under 30 minutes, insane efficiency, had 7 assists tonight after having 8 the other night. They basically gave Kevin the ball and just let him make plays all night long. And there was nothing that Cleveland could do, a team that going into the year was viewed as a contender in the Eastern Conference. I know the record's underwhelming, but still a lot of talent on that team. And if you ask Kevin to do that for the next 3.5 months leading into the playoffs, then yeah, you're probably going to run him into the ground, especially with the Rockets having a disproportionate amount of back-to-backs down the home stretch of this year. But Dave, what this showed me is that when you get to the playoffs, this game is potentially the blueprint for if you really want to buy in on this Rockets team at a high level and say this team can make a ton of noise in April, May, and June. The case for optimism is, hey, let's get to the playoffs. The games are more spread out. There's no back-to-backs. And let's just turn Kevin Durant loose. Let's let him go as far as he can. Dial up the usage and just see what happens. Tonight, they did that in large part because they had no choice without Alperen Sengun, and he delivered against a pretty good team. And the Rockets were on fumes. They didn't practice yesterday. They didn't shoot around today, which is pretty rare when they enter a game without a practice the day before. That's coming off the 6-game road trip. And so this team is tired. They were shorthanded. They basically just gave the ball to Kevin and said, can you get us to the finish line in this game? And not only did he get them to the finish line, he did it in like under 3 quarters, basically. Yeah. And so, yeah, I just get a lot of hope from this game. It's not so much saying that this is the formula for the rest of the regular season. Absolutely not. There's going to be a lot of games that you need Alperen Sengun to sort of soak up minutes and touches and playmaking reps. But, can this team actually get to a championship level April, May, and June? Is there some meat being left on the bone right now from what we've seen in December when even with this win, they're just at 6-6, now 19-10 on the year? The case for optimism, hey, Kevin Durant's a Hall of Famer. what happens when the games get more spread out, they get more meaningful, and you just say, hey, Kevin, we'll go as far as you can take us. Tonight we saw Kevin still has that gear, and if you want to buy in on the Rockets long term, like Kevin Durant at this level is the way they have a chance this season.
Yeah, if you are unsure if Kevin Durant is a special player, and I'm sure there's very few people who are unsure of that, but watch this game. I mean, it's 37-year-old player, and doing what he did in this game, it was just amazing. The shots he was hitting. There was one at the
Oh
top of the
yeah,
key I tweeted out where Evan Mobley, who's did not have a good game tonight, 2 for 9, coming off the bench. I think he had 4 points. I was stunned by the lack of impact, but still a very good defender, very long defender, completely closed out, seemed to be all over KD on a 3-point shot, top of the key, and he drained it. He had 23 points at halftime on 8 of 10 shooting. I think he was 6 of 7 at the line. And these were not like layups off cuts. These were turnaround, guy in his face, hitting 17, 18 footers, couple of threes. I mean, I can't say enough good things about how he played tonight. I'm sure there are other nights where he doesn't quite have it going on, but tonight he was just amazing. I think that's first and foremost the story tonight, and then obviously the next thing being the defense. But on a night when Şengün's out, for KD to step up like that was huge. They really in the first quarter really built out a lead. It was the second quarter, Ben, where the start of the second quarter, probably the
yeah.
only stretch I just really hated about this game. Amen and Reed were out there. And, obviously, as a matter of fact, Ime addressed the multiple ball handlers and the lead guard and the engines and all that stuff in this post game today. And I'll talk about some of those comments. That was the only stretch I didn't like. Amen had a couple of ugly turnovers. Reed, I thought, made a couple of mistakes, and they gave up. They didn't give up the lead, but I think they got it down to like 2 or 3. The Cavs did, and then really the Rockets took off from there. Really blew it open in the third quarter. But other than that, I thought those guys played well. It's real. I think what they have, and we'll talk more about the game specifically, is they have a lot of good guys that can handle the ball and can create. I don't know if they have the one guy just yet, like that you clearly say that's the dude. I mean, obviously, I believe in giving a man more chances, Reed more chances, but that's the only downside, and I think that's what Ime said. Talking about it today, these guys are improving. He was talking about Reed and Amen specifically as ball handlers, and we have multiple guys, and as they learn to get those spots, when you have multiple guys who can handle it, you're going to get some turnovers, which you saw tonight. But he said as they're learning this, they'll get better. And I think that's what we're seeing. He said they've improved already this year, and he thinks they'll get better by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I thought that early second quarter stretch, it wasn't just that Kevin Durant was on the bench, it was also that Steven Adams was on the bench. And
Yeah,
Steven
that's
was
true.
a plus 26 in 22 minutes tonight,
Dude,
which is crazy. But I think, Şengün and Adams are sort of, a stimulus measure in different ways for the young guards. With Şengün, it's because he can be the primary playmaker. He can even bring the ball up the floor and initiate the offense at times. We talked about using him as a point center. And with Steven Adams, it's the screen setting. Clint Capella played hard tonight, but he's not in the league of Alperen Sengun as a playmaker or Steven Adams as a screen setter. And, well, I guess Clint Capella is close to Clint or close to Steven on a per-minute basis when it comes to the rebounding, but I don't think he's nearly the presence when it comes to what opposing teams have to account for. And so I think, be it Şengün as a playmaker or Steven Adams as a screen setter, an offensive rebounder, like those are important stimulus measures to sort of raise the floor when you have two young guards like Amin Thompson, like Reed Shepherd. And so when Şengün's out with the calf, and it wouldn't surprise me, Dave. So Şengün was questionable on Thursday, Christmas night against the Lakers. My guess is that, it's a pretty minor injury. They wouldn't have let him play if they had any concerns about this turning into, what happened with Giannis and like a 4 to 6 week, like legitimate strain. I
Mm-hmm.
think his first time as a young player getting to play on Christmas, they let him play, but he needs a few days. It wouldn't shock me if they sat him Monday as well, because
Thinking
there's
the
sort of
same.
this break in the schedule after Monday's game, and that's a bad opponent that even without Şengün, you'd probably be favored against the Pacers. You don't play again until New Year's Day in Brooklyn. So you can basically buy Şengün a full week of rest if you sit him Monday against a 6-win Pacers team that you should win against at home no matter what. So I would lean to this being the same rotation for Monday night against the Pacers. And then when Şengün comes back in Brooklyn, he'll have had a week off. And I don't view this as a big deal. I really don't think the Rockets would have let him play on Christmas night if this was something they were worried about. I just think it's something that needs a few days, and they erred on the side of giving him the benefit of the doubt, and he played relatively well in Los Angeles. They got a big win on Christmas night, and now you let him heal up on the homestand. But without Sengun as a playmaker and without Steven Adams in those minutes, that's where it gets rougher for the young guys. But they played through it. And then in the second half of the game, some of it's lower leverage minutes, but you look at the final stat line for Reed Shepherd, who was plus 25 in 32 minutes, 18 points, 8 assists, 40% from three. I mean, at some point, the numbers don't lie. This is why you let guys play through it. And we talked offline, Dave. It felt like he was a little over aggressive early in the game, trying to find his way. They let him play through it, and eventually it worked out. And for me, that's what you have to do with young players. You keep trusting them, you keep the leash long. It helps when you have a lead because you can be a little more judicious in the extent of that leash. But tonight's an example of why you don't overreact early. They let Reed play through it, and by the end, he was clearly one of the best non-Kevin Durant players on the floor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Matter of fact, I see some comments in the chat that I think maybe misinterpreting. We were just talking about that second quarter stretch. I thought Reed was really good in this game. I just was talking specifically about Amen and Reed in that early second quarter. And then I noticed, somebody else was saying that not putting enough respect on KD's name. I feel like I'm putting nothing but respect on him. I think he's been terrific this year. I thought he was awesome in this game. So, yeah, I'm not sure where that's coming from. But that was, I think, the big story. Certainly KD's play. Reed was really, really good. But I think defensively, to hold the Cavs to 63 points through three quarters, I mean, they kept using the word on the broadcast, stifling. It really was true. And this was the number one offense in the league last year, the Cavs. I think they're number 9 going into this game. They have definitely had some struggles this year. I think that this is their 5th loss in their last 7 games. And people are disappointed in general with the Cavs, kind of wondering what's going to happen with Donovan Mitchell. But still, it's a capable offense, very good three-point shooting offense. And Rockets did a terrific job defending them tonight and really blew it open in the third quarter. That's another thing that was noteworthy. They had 10 turnovers in the first half, committed their 11th right out of the gate in the third quarter, had 1 turnover the rest of the third quarter. And matter of fact, they only had 1 more turnover till late in the fourth until they picked up a couple in garbage time. So that was nice that they cleaned that up as well. But to get back to the point of the defense, I thought the broadcast talked about this as well. Their ability, I think, in the playoffs to be able to run this specific lineup, which was, and this is the broadcast talking, DFS, Tari, Jabari, Amen, and KD is interesting. And DFS, as you talked about at the top of the show, Ben, having an impact tonight, plus 20, he's just getting the rust off. Matter of fact, you may specifically use that term, just slowly but surely just getting the rust off. This was a guy who, I don't want to use the word anchored, but I guess I'm going to. He anchored that Lakers defense last year. They were really garbage, without him in that defensive unit. I don't know if he's going to be able to fill Dylan's shoes necessarily, but he's going to have a significant impact for you to be able to throw out there Jabari, Tari, Amen, Okogie, and DFS, and even Reed coming along now defensively. It's nice to see, is what I'll just say. It's nice to see the defense getting back because they've had some really inconsistent stretches this year.
And it was a reminder that Jabari at the 5 is a club in the bag. They got away from that when the double big took hold late last season with Steven and Alpi. But if you need to go small, those lineups with Jabari at the 5 can function. We saw that a little bit tonight. And I just think Jabari is such an easy target. I've gotten so frustrated, Dave. We talked about this offline.
It's ridiculous.
The shade Jabari gets. He is now shooting career highs overall, 46%, from 3, 38%. His plus minus is one of the best on the team. Like on the road trip, he had a couple of bad games. And it's like, hold on here. If we're going to talk about his plus minus being bad in the given game, why aren't we talking about the whole season when he's one of the best on the entire team? Like plus minus can be telling if it's, well, it can certainly be telling in that like a guy has a bad night. But if we're trying to use it as a referendum on the player, then if it's a clear outlier relative to the season as a whole, that should be noted. Like you shouldn't note the 1 or 2 bad games in the plus minus without pointing to the season overall when he's still one of the most valuable players on this team. And tonight, 26 minutes, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 6 of 9 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3. He's just such a valuable player. And I feel like his archetype because he doesn't have the defensive highlights that Amen and Tari have, it's so easy to overlook him because whenever someone blows by him on the perimeter, like people make a mountain out of these plays when I would say they're a molehill. In today's NBA, where officials don't let you have any hand checking, much contact at all, there's no Ruben Patterson as the Kobe stopper. To go back to, a reference from our prime days, Dave. Like there are no perimeter stoppers. Even Amin Thompson, I can think of games last year, like one of the most fun. I was thinking back. So I was in person at that game. The Rockets lost to the Knicks at Madison Square Garden, and Jalen Brunson cooked Amin down the stretch.
Yes.
And Amin's a first team all defense guy. It is just so tough in today's NBA with how quick guards are, especially if you're asking bigger guys to switch, with how quick guards are, how tight the handles are, how tight that defenders are whistled in regards to the level of contact that officials allow or more accurately don't allow. That's been a talking point, obviously, all around the league, going back to the Thunder and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The point is, if you want to make a defender look bad and you just want to find the possession where he gets blown by, you can find that. And I feel like that's what people have done with Jabari, because if you look hard enough, if you squint hard enough, yeah, in today's NBA, any good defender is going to get blown by over a few possessions in the game. It happens. It's about the team construct. Defenses these days, the top shelf defense, it's not about individuals. It's about how they function together.
Yes.
And Jabari is really useful in that construct. The plus minus for the season overall doesn't lie. The shooting percentages, he has gotten better overall from three. In my opinion, it's not to say that there haven't been games that Jabari has left you wanting more. That's fair, but overall, Jabari has been a really good player. It's been a very encouraging season for him. I'm not going to say every game has been great, but on the balance, I think you have to be pretty pleased with what you see.
Oh yeah, tonight 15 points, 6 of 9 shooting, 3 of 5 from long range. I mean, yeah, he with Sengun out, you would love to see him get more shots, but he just is content sort of in filling the role both on both sides of the floor, doing whatever it takes, in my opinion, to win. Yeah, he had a couple of games there where he got beat. I think a lot of it is, you can't always, especially as a 6'11" guy, contain as you're pointing out, a guard that's going to
penetration.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of it is funneling, as you're pointing it out, funneling it to help defense or backline rim protection or things of that nature. They judge that in the whole of team defense. I promise you that the internally the Rockets did not look at that and say, "Oh yeah, Jabari Smith Jr. is the problem." Didn't happen. But I know that some fans see that and say Jabari is terrible or whatever. We certainly saw that on Twitter. He's been really good. Another 15-point night. I think that wasn't there a stat? I don't remember it off the top of my head, but a stat where I think he's had several 15-plus point nights in the last X number of games. I'll have to look it back up, but it got shared by the Rockets organization in their media notes today. But I thought he was very efficient tonight. Tari, people were talking about kind of criticizing Tari. I'm not sure why. Maybe I need to go back and look. He did have 5 fouls tonight in 21 minutes, but he did hit 2 of 3. He had some nice defensive highlights. I thought he had a couple of steals. I have to double check that. Yeah, 2 steals tonight. But
Jabari has, to reference the stat, Jabari has scored 15 plus points in 9 of his past 10 games and 19 times overall this season, which is already ahead of his entire total from last year. Yeah. And as mentioned, he's averaging a career high in points, career high in field goal percentage, career high in 3-point percentage. This is a clear step forward. And with Tari, there's something to be said for, sorry to jump in on this, but there's a comment in the chat that I wanted to address. I think the Rockets are 15-1, someone pointed out, in Tari's last 16 games as a starter. I do think there's something to be said for what Tari means for the collective, not just what he means overall, or what he means individually, because he's going to have good games, he's going to have bad games. Tonight wasn't one of his better games, but I think just the combination of defense, the Terror Twins dynamic, the transition play with Amen. We talked about on last episode how he's good for Amen specifically. Offensively, the fact that in contrast to Josh Okogie, who it feels like has been, pushed down a few notches in the rotation, not just Tari, but Aaron Holiday ahead of Okogie in the bench rotation as well. They want more shooting, and so when you have the floor space, it's easier for guys like KD to operate. So with Tari, not his best game individually, but I still contend that starting him is good for the collective. It makes it easier for the other guys to operate.
Yeah, and I don't know why some people out there think, Jabari, he's now 38.2% from three, which is way above average. And I guess I seeing this narrative that he hasn't improved a lick. I'm not understanding that. Maybe it's because Reed and KD are, I think KD's 44.2% and Reed, I think just jotted down 42.9% from three after tonight. I mean, I'm not sure. The Rockets, matter of fact, have really good shooters the way they're playing right now. Those three, Jabari, KD, Reed, and then Tari, again, knock on wood that this stays going, but he's 2 of 3 tonight, shooting 49% from three on the season, which is really kind of in contrast to the fact that Adams, obviously doesn't shoot at all. Amen is just abysmal. Sorry, I love Amen Thompson, but he's been
Hey, he made a three tonight, but yeah, your
he did
point is
right.
fair.
He is, and that's something that obviously he has to work on. And Sengun, after the start of the year, where he was like, wow, and all that EuroBasket stuff. I mean, he's won for his last 20 in threes, and I think the last time he made one was in December. And worse than that, to me, is he's not shooting them anymore. I think he's taken 2 in the last 4 games. I just don't want him to lose his confidence, even if he's missing. I still want him to be able to stretch the floor. But I guess what I'm saying is you've got this contrast of all these defensive wings, and they're actually providing great 3-point shooting. And then you've got 2 or 3 key guys in Amen, Sengun, and Adams who really can't shoot them. I mean, knock on wood, Sengun will get back, but it's an interesting contrast.
And before we close out, I want to throw one more shout out to Dorian Finney-Smith because I think there's been a clear psychological boost. I posted it to my Instagram story. I was in the crowd tonight. The reaction from the bench when DFS hit that first three, they could not have been more happy for the guy. And I don't know how much you attribute to DFS individually and how much the Rockets as an organization, but I don't think Ime Udoka was lying or just trying to keep us, off the trail when he said a few weeks ago that January was the target for DFS. No, I think it got expedited a little bit to Christmas based on what was happening and especially how it was happening this month. We talked about defense and rebounding being where this team has slipped. And DFS is a guy, he's taller, but his profile in terms of what he means defensively, not just individually, but for the team overall, in some ways, it's sort of similar to Fred. And so you bring him back. It's not just what he does against his man in single coverage. It's what he means for the collective. And even if it's 15 to 20 minutes, I mean, that's close to half of a game. Those are meaningful minutes. He was plus 20 in his 16 minutes tonight. So I don't know who you give the credit for. It's probably a combination of the individual and the team. But for all we talked about, and deservedly so in December when they were losing terrible teams about why don't they show more of a sense of urgency? They're falling down the standings in the West. This is a sense of urgency. Like DFS and the team to push the timetable forward and get 2 wins. Like I know you've got your spreadsheet, Dave, and I don't think you would have assumed that the Lakers and Cavs were both wins. Not that necessarily you should have gone 0-2, but I guess what I'm saying is, the Pelicans and Kings were some terrible losses, but these are some good wins. And the Denver game was a good win as well, but I'm pointing to these two because they're the most recent 2 with DFS. And so if you can stack some wins and you have an opportunity, your next 2 games are against the Pacers and the Nets, and let's get back to 21-10 on New Year's Day. I don't think you're too far off the spreadsheet. And certainly like Ime, the culture, the organization, you give a lot of credit to not getting bogged down by the weight of the losses and things spiraling in recent weeks. But I also give a ton of credit to DFS individually. I just think psychologically that was a huge boost to this team when everything was going against them. They needed to see something go right. To me, DFS returning has been a spark. It came at just the right time.
Absolutely. And just on that spreadsheet, I have them currently 1 game behind now. That this at Sacramento and at LAC were both wins that I had, and they lost them both. But then I did have the at Lakers as a loss. This is again how I ranked it at the beginning of the year before any of this stuff played out. They got back within 1, and then I hate to say this, I'm looking at it. I had it 6 straight wins now: Cleveland, Indiana, Brooklyn, Dallas, Phoenix, Portland. So they were supposed to win tonight on the spreadsheet. They can only fall behind if they don't, if they lose any of the next 5 games. But we'll see how this goes. I think there's some others that they can win that I've got on there. And just on another closing note, Sengun, the calf thing. I am just, as you pointed out, always concerned every time I hear calf now, just because of anybody being out. And this was the most important game, the game where I thought, well, Sengun has really done a number on Allen and Mobley lately. I'm sure he wanted to play. I'm sure in other words, I think he would have played this game as opposed to, the others. I think I'm hoping it's just nothing serious. I mean, I don't think it's serious, but I guess what I'm getting at is if it is anything of a concern, I'd like to see him sit the next game and maybe even the next game, just because they are probably the two easiest before you get back with Dallas. Brooklyn has picked it up. They're playing better. But if anything, I think you can survive those games. But obviously, I trust the Rockets to do the right decision with that.
And by the way, excuse me.
Yeah.
Steven Adams is plus minus tonight. I mentioned the plus 26, but Steven Adams Stats on Twitter had a good post earlier today about reasons you shouldn't be alarmed by Steven's plus minus not being what it usually is in recent games. Folks, Steven Adams is an insanely impactful player. He's why you can mitigate a short-term absence for Alperen Sengun. And that's why, if we're talking about a plus minus in a game or two that isn't in line with the season as a whole, it's why you shouldn't overreact the way I thought some segments of this fan base did with Jabari having a couple of bad games on this road trip. Look, everybody, even Steven Adams, over 82 games, is going to have a few games here or there where it doesn't look good in the plus minus. If it's a bigger trend in the aggregate, then yeah, let's talk about it. But if it's clearly an outlier, Jabari's 22 years old. He's clearly getting better. He has career highs in all of these. Yeah, like that's clearly statistical noise. We've seen that the last couple of games with this turning around. And so I think it's just, Steven is a cautionary tale for why, we can point it out when we talk about, an individual game and why the team won or lost. Yeah, that's completely fair. But in terms of like overall trends, what it means, I mean, there's going to be some statistical noise. And the stuff that was going on this road trip with, I would say, Steven and Jabari specifically was clearly statistical noise.
Yeah, and I thought I jotted this down in the notes, but I forgot to mention this. Jabari had a couple of plays in the first quarter, I believe, where he found Adams down low. Adams had either a layup or whatever, got kind of fouled, got put to the line. Jabari doesn't get obviously any assists for that. Not that that's that big of a deal, but I just noteworthy that Jabari did it twice on creation opportunities and found Adams down low. He got to the line. He was just 3 of 6 from the line tonight, but his impact, it's insane. And the thing about it is, I'll just close with this too. Reed Shepherd's starting to be that kind of player too. Like he's out there, and it's not always necessarily because of him, but you look up and he's plus 25 tonight. And I think, a couple of games back, he was the number one guy as far as raw total plus minus. I don't think it's that case now, but it's just right now the Rockets have a lot of depth going on with DFS and Tari back. So it's great to see this. The defense looks good. Hopefully they'll get Sengun back here shortly. Anything else you want to say, Ben, before we close up?
Nope. I think you hit the nail on the head with Sengun. You can be cautious with this. I think, it's nothing major, or they wouldn't have let him play on Christmas after he was previously listed as questionable. I think they let him, Lakers in LA, LeBron and Luka, first time playing on Christmas. I think you combine this game with the Pacers on Monday, you can give him a full week's worth of rest and let it heal up. I don't think it's a big deal. I think this is just them being conservative at a friendly point in the schedule where finally they can be, and hopefully, you give him that week off and he comes back in a week and it's like it never happened. That's my hope, and I think it's a reasonable expectation.
And what is it, 65 games you have to play to be eligible?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he's not close to that or anything. I just what I'm saying is I'd rather be conservative so we don't run the risk of him going a 15-game stretch of being out or something.
And I'm sorry, if you lose to a 6-win Pacers team on Monday night at home, the reason is not that you didn't have Alperen Sengun. Something went wrong with the other 9-10 players that you're playing. So no disrespect to Alperen Sengun, but if somehow this goes wrong on Monday, that you won't hear me on this postgame saying, "Oh, if they only had Alperen Sengun." No, it's squarely within the control of those who are out there.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Feel free to comment in the comments on YouTube to let us know how you feel about what we had to say or the game in general.
I lied. I do have one more shout out. So, one of our listeners, Chris, who was right behind me in the seats tonight, said hello to us. So I'll say hello to Chris. Thanks for watching and/or listening. But it reminds me, this is only the 11th Rockets home game of the season. So they're 19-10, but that's split 11 home games to 18 road. If you want to be bullish, that's a reason to be bullish. This team has not had many home games. They're now 9-2 at Toyota Center. One of the 2 losses was way back in October, the season opener against the Pistons. So, yeah, they're about to have a lot of home games. They've looked really dominant in Toyota Center of late. The crowd was really full tonight. So, fingers crossed, they can build on this because they've looked really good in that building.
Awesome. That's been DuBose. I'm Dave Hardisty. Appreciate y'all listening and watching, and we will see y'all on Monday. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.